A few seconds ago, you clicked on this video. It felt like a choice, your choice. But Carl Jung would ask you one quiet, uncomfortable question. Are you sure it was you? Because there are moments in your life when the person you think you are disappears. You send the message you promised you would not send. You say the sentence you swore you would never say. You wake up in a mood that feels like weather, and by sunset, your entire life looks ruined. Then, 2 days later, the mood lifts. Nothing changed. So, who was in control? Jung spent his life studying this question, and his answer is not comforting. You are not the master of your own house. And in this video, I'm going to show you who else has been living there. Let me describe something from your life. You were angry, but not normal angry. Something took over. Your voice changed. Your face changed. Your words came faster than your thoughts. And while it was happening, some small part of you watched from the background thinking, why am I doing this? Then later, when the damage was done, you said the sentence everyone says, I don't know what came over me. Listen to that phrase, came over me. We say it casually, but it contains an entire psychology. Something came, something with enough force to override your values, your promises, your self-image, your intelligence. You knew better, and you still did it. Modern people call this stress, triggers, trauma responses, emotional dysregulation. Jung didn't dismiss those words, but he thought they were too small, because all of them quietly assume there is one central you who is normally in charge and occasionally loses control. Jung's claim is more disturbing. There is no single, unbroken captain. There never was, and the proof is not hidden in an academic book. It is hidden in the moments you avoid remembering. The argument you replay at 2 a.m., the desire that humiliated you, the cruelty that sounded exactly like your father, the obsession that ate a year of your life. Jung would say, do not look away from those moments. Those are the moments where the house reveals its true owner. This video has 3 movements. First, what Jung believed actually lives inside you, and why he called these forces autonomous. Second, the door of the shadow, the passage in Volume 9 of the Collected Works, where Jung says the quiet part out loud and gives one sentence that explains war, politics, relationships, and the madness of the modern world. And third, what you can actually do about it, not how to become the master. That fantasy is the problem. Something better. And the answer begins with a paradox. The one in the title, the one most self-improvement advice will never tell you about. But to understand it, you first have to meet who else lives in your house. So who are these residents? Jung gave them a name, a word most people think they understand. Complexes. Today we use it casually. A mother complex, an inferiority complex, a savior complex. But Jung meant something much stranger. A complex is not just an insecurity. It is a cluster of memory, emotion, fantasy, instinct, and pain gathered around a wound. And here is the part most people miss. Jung believed complexes are autonomous. They behave like independent beings. They have their own energy, their own timing, their own agenda. They are not ideas you have. They are inner personalities that have you. And when one of them is activated, it does not politely offer advice. It takes the wheel. This is why you can be intelligent, self-aware, emotionally mature, and still become 5 years old in one conversation with your mother. This is why you can know exactly what the healthy choice is and still choose the thing that destroys you. Because in that moment, the ego is not deciding. The complex is, and for a few seconds, or a few days, or sometimes for an entire lifetime, it wears your face. That is what happened when your mother's sentence came out of your mouth. You did not quote her. You became the place in you where she still lives. Ancient people had a word for this experience. Possession. A spirit took the person. A god entered them. A demon spoke through them. Modern people laugh at this. Jung did not. He made one of the most radical moves in modern psychology. He said the ancients were describing something real. They were simply describing it from the outside. We no longer say, a god has taken us. We say, we are triggered. We no longer say a demon has entered the room. We say we had an episode. We no longer say the gods demand sacrifice. We say our compulsions are acting up. The language changed. The experience did not. Jung's argument was not that the old gods were literally sitting on clouds. His argument was more frightening. The gods moved indoors. They became psychological forces. He even traces the renaming. The old word was gods. The modern word is factors. From the Latin facere, to make. The makers. The ones who do things. And because modern people stopped believing in them, they became harder to see. A god you can name has a temple, a ritual, a boundary. A god you deny has your nervous system, and it signs its work with your name. So here is Jung's thesis in plain language. The thing you call I is not the owner of the house. It is one resident, usually the loudest, rarely the strongest. And every time you have said, that wasn't like me, Jung would answer, no, it was like you, just not the you that gets invited into daylight. Now we arrive at the dangerous part. And notice, as we go, that Jung builds this passage like a trap. He starts far away from you. He does not stay there. He begins with early humanity. Ancient people, Jung says, lived in terror of their own emotions. Not because they were weak, because they were honest. They knew that a strong enough emotion could erase consciousness, and a person could be seized by rage, grief, lust, panic, and become someone else. So they built protections, rituals, ceremonies, taboos, symbols. Modern people look at this and call it superstition. Jung saw something else. He saw flood walls. He believed the great ritual structures of humanity were psychological technologies, dams deliberately built, holding back the unconscious. Not because the unconscious is evil, because it is powerful, too powerful to meet without form. What looks like superstition was flood infrastructure for the soul. Then Jung tells a story. He once spoke with a religious leader of the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico. The man told him, in complete earnest, that if the Americans kept interfering with his people's religion, with the rites that helped the sun cross the sky, then one day the sun would not rise. The modern mind smiles at this. Jung did not smile. He translated. The sun was not only the star in the sky, it was consciousness, the light by which human beings see. The old man was making a precise psychological prediction. Destroy the rituals that protect consciousness, and darkness returns. The flood comes back. And now Jung turns the mirror toward us, because modern humanity did exactly that. We tore down the rituals. We dissolved the dogmas. We mocked the old symbols. We declared ourselves rational, scientific, free. We congratulated ourselves for finally being awake. And then Jung asks, did the unconscious disappear because we stopped believing in it? Did the flood vanish because we laughed at the walls? No. The waters rose. They simply rose through politics, ideology, mass movements, propaganda, addiction, tribal hatred, and private despair. Then Jung gives one sentence that should make every modern person pause. The whole world wants peace, and the whole world prepares for war. That sentence is the key. Every nation says it wants peace. Every leader says they are defending peace, and they are not lying. The world wants peace consciously, but unconsciously it prepares for war. This is Jung's proof. Not that humans are stupid. Something worse. Humans are divided. The conscious mind says one thing. The unconscious prepares another. And this is not only true of nations. It is true of you. You want love, but prepare for abandonment. You want success, but prepare for humiliation. You want intimacy, but prepare your escape. You want peace, but rehearse the argument. You want to be free, but keep feeding the prison. This is what Jung means by the shadow, not simply your dark side. Everything in you that has been rejected, denied, exiled, or never made conscious, and because it is unseen, it acts without permission. The shadow is not dangerous because it is evil. It is dangerous because it is unconscious. Jung says that in the daylight rooms of consciousness, we feel like the makers of our own lives, responsible, rational, awake. But step through the door of the shadow, and what waits on the other side answers the question in the title of this video. Who really controls your mind? Jung's own words. We discover, with terror, that we are not the makers. We are the objects of unseen factors. Not only the maker, also the made. Made by childhood, made by wounds, made by instincts older than language, made by family ghosts, made by images, fears, and forces you did not choose. No wonder people avoid this door. Nothing is more humiliating to the ego than discovering it is not sovereign. After calling us the objects of unseen factors, he adds something surprising. This anxiously guarded belief in the supremacy of consciousness is one of the secrets of human success. Listen to that again. The illusion of the captain built ships, cities, sciences, civilizations. The fantasy of control is not a stupid mistake. It is humanity's greatest achievement, and it is still a fantasy. Both things are true at the same time. Hold that tension, because it is exactly where this video is going. The ego wants a throne. Jung gives it a lamp and says, "Go downstairs." Now, this is where many people misunderstand Jung. They think he is saying free will is fake, that you are helpless, that the unconscious is a prison. But Jung is saying something far more useful. The more completely you believe you are the captain, the more perfectly the other residents can steer, because a force you deny is a force you cannot watch. This is the paradox of control. You are not free because you are in control. You become free when you can finally see what has been controlling you. And that changes everything. So the question becomes practical. How do you actually see what has been controlling you? Jung's answer is simple, but it can change a life. A complex has power over you in direct proportion to its invisibility. Listen to that again. A complex does not need your agreement. It needs your ignorance. It does not need to defeat you in an argument. It only needs to convince you that its voice is yours. This is how possession works psychologically. The rage says, "I am just telling the truth." The wound says, "I am protecting you." The fear says, "I am being realistic." The shame says, "I am making you better." The abandoned child says, "Send the message." And because the voice comes from inside you, you believe it. You think it is you. But the moment you can say, "Something in me is activated," the spell weakens, not disappears. Weakens. That small sentence creates a gap. The rage still rises, but now you can watch it rise. The shame still speaks, but now you can hear its accent. The fear still warns you, but now you can ask, "How old is this fear?" That is freedom, not total control, not emotional perfection, not becoming some marble statue of enlightenment. Freedom is the tiny space between the force and your obedience to it, and that space is built through attention. This is especially important for deep intuitive people, INFJs, INTJs, INFPs, and INTPs, people who have always sensed that the surface of life is not the whole thing. For you, Jung's discovery lands differently, in two ways. First, the hard part. Your inner world is large, which means your complexes are rarely simple. They are not small tenants. They are ancient residents with libraries. When you are taken by a mood, it can feel like a season. When you are possessed by an idea, it can consume a year. When a wound is touched, you may not react to the present moment. You may react to every moment that ever resembled it. Your house is not a cottage. It is a mansion. and mansions have more locked rooms. But there is also an advantage, and it is real. You already know how to watch yourself. You have been doing it your whole life. You have felt the shift before the mood arrived. You have heard the second voice under your first thought. You have sensed when a conversation was really about something older. That watching, which you may have called overthinking, sensitivity, or dissociation, is the raw material of Jungian awareness. Untrained, it becomes paralysis. Trained, it becomes a lamp. Most people have to be dragged into the shadow by a catastrophe. You have been standing near the door for years. The question is whether you will keep staring at it or finally open it deliberately. So, what does this look like in practice? It does not mean fighting your complexes. That usually fails, because one complex simply declares war on another, and you call the battle self-improvement. It does not mean becoming emotionless. That is just fear wearing spiritual clothing. It does not mean killing the ego. Usually, the part of you that wants to kill the ego is also an ego. Jung's path was relationship. You learn the names of the residents. This one arrives when I feel dismissed. This one speaks in my father's grammar. This one panics when I am about to be seen. This one sabotages joy because joy was never safe. You do not worship them. You do not obey them. You do not deny them. You recognize them. And recognition changes the entire house. What is named can be negotiated with. What is seen can be contained. What is made conscious no longer needs to act out in secret. That is why Jung called the deeper work individuation. Not becoming perfect, becoming whole, not removing the darkness, relating to it consciously, not mastering the house, knowing who lives there. And now return to Jung's sentence about the whole world wanting peace while preparing for war. That is not only politics. That is the human condition. The world prepares for war because individuals refuse to meet their own inner armies. The rejected shadow returns as enemies. The denied rage returns as ideology. The unprocessed wound returns as moral certainty. The unconscious does not vanish. It recruits. Jung believed the fate of the world depended on the psyche of the individual, not as a poetic metaphor, as a psychological fact. Every person who refuses to meet their shadow adds it to the world, and every person who makes one unseen factor conscious removes one soldier from the invisible army. That is the work. Not glamorous, not easy, but real. So no, you are not the master of your own house. Jung will not give you that comfort, and you should distrust anyone who does. But you can become something better than a master. You can become the one who knows the house, the one who has walked its dark floors with a lamp, who knows which doors creak, which rooms are sealed, which voices belong to childhood, which tenants rage when they are ignored. The master commands and is secretly commanded. The one who knows can negotiate, and a person who has negotiated with their own depths becomes very difficult to possess, very difficult to manipulate, very difficult to stampede, very difficult to march into someone else's war. The whole world wants peace. Start with one house, yours. If this opened a door for you, the deeper work lives on my Substack, The Hidden Chamber. And if you know someone whose house has been running them for years, send them this. The light is still on. Go meet whose home.